couple of years ago, after Irene decided that she could put up with me for more than a little time, and we moved in together, she asked me if I would help educate her brother and her sister. So they came up from Mindanao to join us here in Durmageti, and then a little while later, her lovely niece came up and joined us as well. Recently, after dinner each night, we've been doing a few sessions on goal setting to try and help the kids discover what they really want to do in life. And one of the things that Kai Kai said was that she would like to travel. So today I thought I'd tell you a little bit about negotiating for keepsakes and souvenirs when you're traveling. But before I do, if you like what you hear, please subscribe. Press like if you will. Make a comment if you'd like to, and press that little bell on your screen there so that you can receive any future posts that we send out to you. I'm going to explain about negotiating by telling you a couple of stories. The first one I referred to is when I was talking to what I call Mr. Khajuraho. Now this happened in a place called Khajuraho in India when we were, I was walking around about 11 o'clock one night, very late, most places had closed down, and there was a chap there in a jewelry shop who was still open. Come in, come in, come in, he said. Come and have a cup of chai. And I said to him, really, look, I was looking at the window, I said, really, look, I don't want to buy anything. He said, no problem, it's very late, come in and talk to me. Have a cup of chai. And I said, really, I don't want to buy anything. He said, no problem, come and have a cup of chai. Chai being the Indian tea. Some places they call it tea tarak, but same thing. So we went down and we sat down, and he said, what do you think about India? And I said, I think India is one of the most fascinating countries in the world. Having spent almost 25 years of my life on the road, India is one of the most amazing places that I have ever been to, for the colors, the sights, and this is exactly what I was telling him. I said to him, India is just fascinating. I said, I was up at the big fort the other day and looking at the swords and the weaponry that they had. And there was a long chainmail sleeve there. And when you closed your fist with the sleeve, there was two great big bladed knives sticking out the end. And I said to one of the guards, I said, what's this used for? I said, if you drop your sword when you're fighting, can you still have the knives so you can still keep fighting? And he said, oh, no. He said, that's for tiger hunting. And I said, please explain. And he said, well, in the old days when they were hunting for tigers, they used to surround the tigers in the bush. But they always left one escape route for the tiger. And it was the job of 2 or 3 men to stand in this escape route wearing these chainmail arms with the knives on. And as the tigers came out from the circle, tried to escape, and they saw the men, the tigers would leap at the men. It was their job to ram their fist right into the tiger's mouth, right, so that it cut all the inside of its mouth. And then they would track it for 2 or 3 days after that. And when it eventually died, they could get the skin of the tiger without having any bullet holes or damages to the skin. Right? And I said to him, India is a most amazing place, but there's only one thing wrong with India. He said, what's that? And I said, the people. Oh, he said, what do you mean by that? And I said, you have to negotiate for everything. You cannot buy a train ticket, a bus ticket, you cannot move into a hotel, you cannot buy a Coca-Cola without negotiating for it. Because if you're a foreigner, they always want to charge you a lot more. And he said to me, but you don't understand. He said, let me explain it to you. He said, he went over to the counter and he brought back 3 rings, right? Just nice little rings. And he said, how much do you think this ring is worth? And I said, well, I don't want to be rude, but to me, it's just a cheap ring, maybe $1, $2, something like that. He said, you're right, this is just a cheap ring. Then he pulled out another one, and he said, how much do you think this ring is worth? And I said, well, it's obviously better than the last one. I said, but it's still just, a piece of junk jewelry. I said, maybe $3, maybe $5, something like that. He said, you're right, this is just a cheap ring. Now, I'm talking here, this would have been back in about 1980, so we're talking a fair while ago, so the prices were a little bit lower then, obviously. He pulled out the third ring, and he said, how much do you think this ring is worth? And you could tell by the gems that were set in it and the way it was cut that it was obviously better than the other two. So that's what I said to him. I said, this is obviously better than the other two, but to me it's just like a piece of Indian jewelry. And he said, I said to him, maybe $10, but no more than $10. He said, but that's where you're wrong. He said, this is a valuable piece of jewelry. He said, this is worth about $50, right? And he said, but people don't understand this. So he said, I have busloads of tourists come into my shop every day. Khajuraho is an old archaeological site where they have a lot of temples there that are carved in very, very erotic carvings. You name it, these people were doing it. It doesn't matter how many were involved, and it doesn't matter what sort of animals were involved. They were into it. So it did attract a lot of attention. And he said, I have busloads of people coming into my shop every day, and they will pick up this $1 ring and say, how much is this? And I will say to them, $50. And they will say, no, I'm not going to pay you $50. But Westerners have sort of been trained that you offer about 50% of whatever is asked. So they will say to him, buy this ring for $25. Now the shopkeeper already knows he's got a sale. Right? So after a little bit of negotiation, they'll buy it for $26, $28, something like that. And he said they will go home happy because they've managed to bargain me down to just over half price. And I will be very, very happy, he said, because I have made a lot of money. He said, but you've got to understand that what they are buying is not a ring. They're not buying a piece of jewelry. What they're actually buying is a keepsake that they can take home to England or America or wherever they are, and sit around the dinner table telling all their friends, look what I brought in India, and I negotiated this man down from $50 to $27, and I got an absolute bargain. Right? And they can tell all the stories of their experiences in India based on the purchase of this ring, and they can boast. So he said, they're not buying a ring, they're buying a memory, and they're buying a talking piece. And that is worth a lot more than the ring itself is actually worth. So they don't mind paying it. And they said, he also said, if they can afford to come to my country for a holiday, then they can afford to pay $25 for a ring. So we're all happy. We've all got what we want, and even if they have paid far too much for it. Another story happened in Jodhpur, the blue city in India. And again, I have this habit of walking around late at night. And I walked into this clothing place which sold silk materials and made up shirts and pants and clothes and things like that. And again, the man said, it was late at night, he said, come and have a cup of chai. So we're sitting there having a cup of chai, discussing India generally. And he said to me, have you ever had your fortune told? And I said, funny you should ask that, because I went to a fortune teller today. And he said, and what did the fortune teller tell you? And I said, nothing, because I didn't have it read. Because he wanted $65 for a reading and $135 for a full horoscope and a reading, and if I wanted to, I could write to him any time in the next 12 months and ask him any question, and he would give me an answer to it. And if I wanted to keep going after that, I could just send him $65 every year, and he would keep answering any questions that I wanted. And he said to me, what was his name? And I said, I don't remember his name. Indian names are too difficult. So he said, wait. And he went over and he came back with a business card. And he said, was this the man? Well, I didn't recognize the name, but I did recognize the business card. And I said, yes, that was him. I said he was a very, very well-spoken man with an English accent. He was dressed impeccably, you know, like an English gentleman would dress. And he spoke with a very English accent. And he said, and the man in the shop said to me, I do not understand foreigners. And I said, what do you mean? He said, this man has foreigners sending him $65 every year. He said he has hundreds of them. He makes a lot of money. People send clients to him and get paid commission. He said, I am one of the people. I send clients to him and I get paid the commission for everyone that I send to him. But he said, if you want to have your fortune told in India by a real fortune teller, then an old lady or an old man who has the true sense of what it's all about, it will cost you about $1 or $1.50, not $65 or $135. He said, I do not understand foreigners. They will pay $65 a year to have their fortune told, but they will come in here and bargain for 3/4 of an hour to get 20 cents off a yard of silk. He said, it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me either. It's absolutely logical. Another story that I will tell you happened in Thailand. I had gone up to Ayutthaya, which is the old capital of Thailand, just north of Bangkok. And I had my son with me, and we booked into this guest house, and the tuk-tuk driver who had taken us to this guest house said to me, would your son like to come out with me on the tuk-tuk tomorrow? And I said, oh, I'm not too sure about that. It was the Songkran festival tomorrow, which is the water festival. They splash water over you and soak you, and especially if you're a foreigner, they don't soak you, they drown you. It's all a lot of fun.
How long you stayed there?
And that was one of the very early trips I did with my partner Fiona, and that was actually 1980.
In India?
No, this is in Thailand. This particular one is in Thailand. And we were only there on that trip, I think we were there for about a month, something like that. So anyway, the lady who was running the guest house, she said to me, no, she said, he'll be perfectly all right. If you want to let the boy go out with the tuk-tuk driver, he'll be fine. So I said, all right then. The next day, he came back and picked Nick up in the morning, and Fiona and I went off to the Songkran festival. And as we were marching on the parade in the Songkran festival, we met this group of school teachers who invited us back to their place for dinner that night. So I said, well, I can't come straight there. I've got to go and pick up my son before we go there. And they said, that's fine. We'll send our daughter back, and she can bring you back with us. So Fiona and I and the daughter went back, and we picked up Nick. Nick arrived back about 5 o'clock in the evening. And I said, did you have a good time? Now, Nick was about 11 or 12 at the time. He said, I had a great time. I was driving the tuk-tuk, and I was drinking whiskey with the guys, and I was having wonderful time.
What is tuk-tuk, Uncle Jack?
Here you would call them not a multi-cab, a tricycle, like a tricycle. It's one of those little vans. It's a little bit different than a tricycle, but it's a cabin set on the back of a motorbike. Cabin set on a motorbike. So Nick had a wonderful time driving the tuk-tuk and drinking whiskey and chatting with all the guys and all the tuk-tuk drivers. So we went back and met this couple, and they phoned the lady's husband, who drove all the way from Kanchanaburi on the bridge where the bridge on the River Kwai was. And he came all the way up, picked us up, and they insisted that the next day we go back and spend some time with them. So we went back to Kanchanaburi, and we were staying in their house. And we went for a walk along the river at night time, and Fiona found this little brooch that she liked, and the girl said, don't you buy it, we will go and buy it for you, because we will get the local price. So they went along and they bought this little brooch for about $1.20 from memory, something like that. And that was fine. It was just a little keepsake, carefully painted brooch. And everything was happy. About 3 weeks later, after we'd done our tour through Thailand, various places, we happened to be back in Bangkok. And we went to the floating markets. Floating markets is a very, very touristy place. And we walked into this jewelry shop. And there was the same brooch there. So out of interest, I walked up to the lady and I said to him, "How much for this brooch?" And she said, $28. And I just laughed. I just burst out laughing. She said, "No, no, 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 you do not understand." She said, "You are in Thailand now. You ask me how much, I give you a price, you give me your price, and then we come to an arrangement." I said, "Oh, is that how it works? I am sorry, I had no idea." She said, "Yes," she said, "you give me your price." Now, most foreigners, as I said before, if they were interested in buying the brooch, instead of $28, they would offer $14 and maybe buy it for $16 or $17. But I said to her, she said, how much you offer?" And I said, $1.20. And she said, "Ooh, how long you been in Thailand?" she said. Because then she understood that I knew what she knew, you see. So negotiating is a very difficult thing, especially if you're in a tourist area. Do not be afraid to go very, very low. Back in India, I was talking to a man and asking him one time in India, "How do you know when they give you a price how much you can buy it for?" And he said, "You never know." He said, "You never know." He said, "Sometimes if they've had a good day and they've sold a lot of things," he said, "they will put a price on it and they won't budge. You will either pay the price or you won't get it." But sometimes, if they haven't sold anything that day and they have to buy food to feed their family, they will actually sell it for less than they have paid for it. He said it's all done on a needs basis. If they need to sell it, you can negotiate a lot. If they don't need to sell it, they won't negotiate at all. Rule of thumb that I have come to the conclusion of it is, if you're in a tourist area and you want to buy something, offer 10% of the price that they ask. Now, you probably won't get it for 10%, but it gives them a pretty good indication that you know a little bit more about the place than you actually do. Always keeping in mind, of course, that what is a lot of money to them is very little to us. So does it really matter if you pay a little bit more? One other final little thing. When you go into a place to buy something, you will find they will ask you questions. Just polite questions, getting to know you, you know. "Hi, what's your name? Where are you from? How long have you been in our country? Are you liking our country?" Understand that every question that they ask you is designed to give them information about you. Right? Where are you from? Right? Now, when you say where you're from, it tells them certain things about you. For example, if you say England, they know English people rarely buy anything. So it doesn't really matter what they negotiate. You're probably not going to buy anyway. Russians will pay any price that you ask, provided it is something that they really want. He said, if they really want it, price is no object. If they don't want it, they're not going to buy it, no matter how cheap you sell it, you offer it to them for it. French and Italians will only buy things if it's really good quality. You know? Americans always pay too much. always pay too much. Australians will not buy anything unless it's a bargain. Unless they've got a bargain, they think it's a bargain, they won't buy anything. So understand that every time they ask you a question, it's designed to find out something about you that helps them. How long have you been in our country? Oh, I just arrived. How long are you here for? I'm here for a month. Well, they know that you're very unlikely to buy something if you've only been here in the first few days. But they will try and sell it to you because maybe if you do buy it, you don't know the prices yet, and so you'll pay a lot more. If you say, oh, I'm leaving in 3 days, they know you're in buying mode. So you're suddenly collecting memories to take with you, and they will negotiate a lot harder, If you've just arrived in the country, sure, you might buy things like sun hats or stuff like that, different clothes that you think, but you won't buy anything that's heavy that you've got to carry around for a long time. So that's a little bit about negotiating in Asia. In Asia, do not be afraid of starting very, very low, but also keep in mind that what is a little bit to us can be a lot to them. So, hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was a little bit informative. If you did, please press subscribe. Make a comment if you want to. Press like and press the little bell so that you can get some future posts. What did you think of that, Kai Kai? I didn't even introduce you, did I? This is Rose Ann. Her mother named her because she's as pretty as a rose, especially seeing she just put lipstick on today. Thank you, Rose. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah.
Okay.